What if the only thing standing between your $100 account and a $1,000 fortune isn't strategy, luck, or even timing, but your mindset? Most traders blow up not because they don't know how to trade, but because they never learn how to think like a trader. They chase quick wins, fall into emotional traps, and treat the market like a casino. The truth? The markets don't reward speed, greed, or hope. They reward patience, discipline, and control. This book isn't about giving you the perfect indicator or a magic formula. It's about reshaping how you see money, risk, and yourself. Inside, you'll learn the exact mindset shifts that transform a beginner with $100 into a consistent, confident trader on the path to $1. If you've ever blown an account, panicked, in a trade, or felt like success was always out of reach, this book will show you the missing piece. Because trading isn't just about charts, it's about you. Chapter 1. The $100 Mindset. What would you do if all you had to start trading was just $100? Some people laugh at the idea. They say it's impossible to turn such a small amount into anything meaningful. Others treat it like a lottery ticket, hoping to flip it into a fortune overnight. Both groups fail for the same reason. They don't understand the true game of trading. They don't realize that the size of the account doesn't matter nearly as much as the size of the mindset behind it. When I first started trading, I thought money was the solution to everything. If only I had a bigger account, I believed, then I could finally make serious profits. But here's the uncomfortable truth I learned after 20 years in the market. Money doesn't change your habits. It only magnifies them. If you can't manage $100, you will never be able to manage $10,000, and certainly not $1,000. The person who chases quick gains, ignores risk, and lets emotions run the show will blow up any account, no matter how big it is. On the other hand, the trader who treats $100 with respect, patience, and discipline will build the foundation for unlimited growth. Think about it this way. Imagine you handed a lottery winner $1 million. Most of them would be broke again within a few years. Why? Because they never built the habits, discipline, or mindset to manage wealth. The same thing happens in trading. You could hand a beginner a huge account, and within months, they'd lose it. But give a disciplined trader $100, and they'll use it to practice, to learn, to sharpen their skills, eventually growing it, step by step, into something far bigger. The $100 mindset isn't about the money itself. It's about who you become while managing that money. It's about learning the lessons that compound over time, just like interest in a bank account. Every small, consistent action you take adds up to something massive in the long run. Why most traders fail, with 100 most beginners see $100 as too small to be meaningful. They treat it like play money. They place oversized trades. They gamble on risky setups, and they jump in and out of positions without a plan. In their mind, losing $100 isn't a big deal. The problem is, the habits they're building are disastrous. Every trade shapes your psychology. If you teach your brain that trading is about gambling, chasing, and hoping, you'll never unlearn that mindset, even if you later fund your account with $10,000. Here's what usually happens. A new trader deposits $100. They think, if I just double this a few times, I'll have thousands. So they take oversized positions, hoping for big wins. Maybe they get lucky once or twice, which reinforces the bad habit. But eventually, the market takes it back, and their account hits zero. They walk away saying trading doesn't work, when in reality, their mindset never worked. It's not about the size of your account, it's about the rules you live by. A disciplined trader could take that same $100, risk only a small fraction, per trade and use it as a training ground. They would focus on execution, on following rules, on building patience. Over time, that trader might not make millions instantly, but they would build the habits that could one day grow millions. Thinking like a millionaire with 100. So how do you take a tiny account and think like a millionaire trader? It starts with perspective. Millionaire traders don't think in terms of one trade. They think in terms of thousands of trades. They know it's not about winning big today. It's about surviving long enough to play the game tomorrow. When you trade with $100, the temptation is to think every trade must count. But that's not how millionaires think. They know each trade is just one of many. They measure success not by the outcome of one trade, but by whether they followed their plan. Here's a shift in thinking. With $100, don't focus on the dollar amount you win or lose. Focus on the process. Did you execute the setup correctly? Did you follow your risk rules? Did you manage your emotions? If yes, then it was a successful trade, even if the market went against you. Millionaire traders also think in terms of percentages, not dollars. If your $100 account grows by 2% in a week, that might not seem like much. But if you can consistently do that, the compounding effect over years is massive. That same 2% applied to $10,000 or $100,000 creates life-changing results. The math doesn't lie. Compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, but you only experience it if you survive long enough with discipline. Escaping the quick gains trap. The deadliest mindset in trading is the obsession with quick gains. Social media is full of screenshots of traders turning small accounts into thousands overnight. What you don't see is the countless traders who tried the same thing and lost everything. The market has a cruel way of rewarding bad behavior in the short term. You might double your account in one lucky week, but the habits you built, oversizing, chasing, ignoring risk, will eventually destroy you. True wealth in trading doesn't come from doubling your money overnight. It comes from the boring, consistent grind of small, controlled wins. It comes from managing risk so well that one bad trade never ruins you. It comes from patience, the willingness to wait for the right setups instead of forcing action. When you have only $100, it's easy to think, I can't afford to be patient. I need big wins. But this is a lie. The truth is, the only thing you can't afford is recklessness. Every reckless trade sets you back, not just financially, but psychologically. If you learn patience with $100, you'll carry that into bigger accounts. If you don't, you'll carry your bad habits too. Treating $100 like one mem. Here's the secret. If you treat your $100 account like a $1 million account, one day it might actually become one. Think about how you'd behave if you were managing $1. Would you throw it all on one risky trade? Would you double down on a losing position because you felt it was going to reverse? Of course not. You'd protect it with everything you had. You'd move carefully, with respect for the money. That's how you must treat your $100. Because the habits you build with a small account are the same habits you'll carry when your account is larger. If you learn to respect $100, you'll naturally respect $10,000 and $1,000. The long game mentality trading is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a lifelong journey. The goal is not to make $1 million overnight. The goal is to stay in the game long enough for your skills, discipline, and consistency to compound into wealth. The $100 mindset is about playing the long game. It's about realizing that every small win builds confidence, every disciplined decision builds resilience, and every avoided mistake saves you from disaster. It's about learning to love the process more than the outcome. When you understand this, the pressure disappears. Suddenly, your $100 isn't about chasing quick riches. It's about practicing, sharpening, and building habits. It's about becoming the kind of trader who will one day manage much larger sums with confidence. Final thoughts on the $100 mindset. If you take nothing else from this chapter, remember this: money doesn't make you a trader. Mindset does. $100 is not an obstacle. It's an opportunity. It's your training ground. It's the place where you build the habits, the patience, and the discipline that will carry you to $1,000. Most people fail because they never respect the process. They see $100 as nothing. But those who succeed know that if you can master $100, you can master any amount. The market doesn't care how much you start with. It cares how you play the game. And if you learn to play it right, even the smallest account can become the foundation for something extraordinary. Chapter 2. Discipline. Strategy. If strategy were the secret to trading success, everyone would be rich by now. Just think about it. There are thousands of books, countless YouTube tutorials, and entire courses that promise the perfect trading strategy. If winning in the markets was only about strategy, someone would have cracked the code already. But here's the truth that many don't want to hear. Strategies are everywhere, but discipline is rare. And discipline, not strategy, is what separates the broke trader from the profitable one. I've seen traders with flawless strategies blow up their accounts in a matter of weeks because they couldn't follow their own rules. On the other hand, I've seen traders with simple, almost boring systems make consistent profits for years because they had the discipline to stick with it. The strategy may tell you where to enter and exit, but discipline decides whether you actually follow through. Why strategy alone isn't enough. The markets are a tricky place. No strategy works 100% of the time. You could have the most sophisticated algorithm, the sharpest technical setup, or the most proven indicator, and still lose money if you don't have the patience to wait for the right signal or the courage to cut a loss when you're supposed to. Imagine a diet plan. The strategy is the meal plan. Eat this, avoid that, work out 3 times a week. Sounds simple, right? But how many people actually stick to it? The failure rate in dieting isn't because the strategies are flawed. It's because people lack the discipline to follow them when cravings or laziness kick in. Trading works the same way. The hard part isn't finding the plan, it's sticking to it when the emotions of greed and fear start whispering in your ear. The illusion of the perfect strategy. Every new trader goes through the same phase, the endless hunt for the holy grail strategy. They jump from one method to another, convinced that somewhere out there is a system that wins every time. They buy courses, download indicators, and test dozens of setups. What they don't realize is that the holy grail isn't a strategy at all. It's discipline. Even the best strategies lose sometimes. In fact, a good strategy might lose 40% of the time. That means almost half of the trades could go against you. Without discipline, most people can't stomach that. They abandon the strategy after a few losses, switch to something new, and start the cycle all over again. Discipline means sticking with a system long enough to let probabilities play out. It means accepting that losses are part of the game and not letting a losing streak push you into revenge trading or reckless decisions. The 3 enemies of discipline sounds simple on paper, but in practice, it's the hardest skill to master. The reason is that trading triggers 3 of the most powerful forces in human psychology: fear, greed, and impatience. Fear shows up when the market moves against you. Instead of cutting a loss at your stop loss, fear convinces you to just hold a little longer, hoping the trade will turn around. Often, it doesn't, and a small loss grows into a disaster. Greed shows up when you're winning. Instead of sticking to your target, greed whispers, "Stay a little longer, squeeze more profit." Before you know it, the market reverses, and what could have been a green trade ends in red. Impatience shows up in the quiet moments. You don't see a good setup, but you're bored or feel like you should be trading. So you force a trade, jumping into a low-quality setup. And 9 times out of 10, impatience costs you money. Discipline is the antidote to all three. It's the ability to follow your rules even when your emotions scream otherwise. Habits that protect your account. Every disciplined trader I know has habits that act like guardrails, keeping them from driving off the cliff. One of the most powerful is the use of stop losses. A stop loss isn't just about protecting money, it's about protecting your discipline. It forces you to accept a small loss and move on, instead of letting emotions spiral into disaster. Another habit is patience. Great traders spend more time waiting than trading. They know that opportunities are like buses. Miss one, and another will come. The amateur trader, on the other hand, treats every moment of inaction as wasted time. They forget that no trade is better than a bad trade. And then there's the habit of not overtrading. Overtrading usually comes from two places: the desperation to make money fast, or the frustration of losing. Either way, it destroys accounts. Disciplined traders set limits. They know when to stop for the day, even if they're tempted to keep going. Stories from the trenches. I once knew a trader named Tom. He had a strategy that worked beautifully in backtests. His setups were solid, his entries and exits were logical, and his risk-to-reward ratios were excellent. On paper, he should have been printing money. But in practice, Tom couldn't follow his own rules. When trades went against him, he refused to take the stop. When trades went in his favor, he closed them early out of fear. Slowly but surely, his account bled dry. On the other hand, there was Sarah. Sarah's strategy was incredibly simple, almost boring. She focused on one setup, one pattern, and traded it with strict discipline. She wasn't trying to get rich overnight. She was focused on consistency. Over time, Sarah built her account slowly but surely. Today, she's not only profitable, but confident, because she knows discipline will keep her safe, even when her strategy hits a rough patch. The difference between Tom and Sarah wasn't intelligence or strategy. It was discipline. Trading without discipline is like driving without brakes. Here's a way to think about it. Imagine driving a sports car at 150 miles an hour. The engine is your strategy. It gives you speed, power, and potential. But without brakes, no matter how powerful the engine is, you're going to crash. Discipline is the brakes. It keeps you safe. It lets you control the power of your strategy. You wouldn't trust a car without brakes. So why would you trust a strategy without discipline? How to build discipline. Step-by-step discipline isn't something you magically wake up with one day. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger with practice. Every time you follow your rules instead of your emotions, you strengthen it. Every time you resist the urge to overtrade, you build it. And yes, every time you fail and reflect on that failure, you have another chance to grow it. One of the best ways to build discipline is through journaling. Write down every trade you take, why you took it, how you felt, whether you followed your plan. Over time, patterns emerge. You'll see where you lose discipline and can work on fixing it. Another method is to set hard rules for yourself. For example, I will never risk more than 1% of my account on a single trade. Or, if I hit 2 losses in a row, I'll stop trading for the day. These rules take decision-making out of the heat of the moment and keep you grounded. The payoff of discipline. The beautiful thing about discipline is that it compounds, just like money. At first, it feels restrictive. You want to break the rules. You want to chase. You want to force trades. But the more you practice discipline, the more freedom you gain. You free yourself from the roller coaster of emotions. You free yourself from the constant anxiety of wondering if you'll blow up again. You free yourself to trade with clarity and confidence. Discipline doesn't just protect your account, it protects your mindset. And in trading, mindset is everything. Final thoughts on discipline. At the end of the day, trading is not about finding the perfect strategy. It's about becoming the kind of person who can follow any good strategy with discipline. Strategies can change, markets can change, but discipline is timeless. If you take this lesson to heart, you're already ahead of 90% of traders. Most will keep chasing shiny new strategies, hoping the next one will save them. But you'll know the truth. Discipline beats strategy every time. Discipline is what turns small accounts into big ones. Discipline is what keeps you in the game when others quit. Discipline is the secret weapon of every millionaire trader. And without it, no strategy in the world. Mastering emotional control. Imagine this. You're watching a trade move in your favor. Your heart beats faster as the numbers tick higher. You think, maybe I should hold a little longer. Maybe I'll double my profit if I just wait. Then, suddenly, the chart reverses. All those profits vanish in seconds, and now you're staring at a loss. Your stomach drops. You panic. You click close trade out of fear, swearing to yourself you'll never do that again. But the next time, the cycle repeats. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Every trader, no matter how experienced, faces the same emotional battles: fear, greed, and FOMO. These emotions are more dangerous than any market crash or bad strategy. Why? Because markets don't kill accounts. Traders kill accounts by letting emotions take over. Why emotions are the real enemy. Trading is the ultimate test of emotional control. Most jobs reward you for being emotional, passion at work, excitement in sales, enthusiasm in relationships. But in trading, emotions are punished. Fear makes you sell too early. Greed makes you hold too long. FOMO makes you enter trades that don't meet your rules. The market doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you're excited, scared, or frustrated. It rewards discipline and punishes impulsiveness. That's why mastering emotional control is more important than mastering any chart pattern. The biology behind your trading brain, too. Understand why emotions hijack traders. We need to look at biology. Deep in your brain sits a small, almond-shaped cluster called the amygdala. Its job is survival, detecting threats, triggering fear, and flooding your body with adrenaline. Thousands of years ago, this helped humans survive lions and predators. Today, the lion is a red candlestick moving against your trade. When your amygdala senses danger, your body reacts automatically. Your heart rate spikes, your palms sweat, your thinking narrows to fight or flight mode. Logic shuts down. This is why, in the heat of the moment, you do things you swore you'd never do, like doubling down on a losing trade or exiting too early. The problem is that markets aren't predators. A losing trade won't kill you. But your brain reacts as if it will. Unless you train your mind to regulate these emotions, you'll always be a victim of your biology. Fear, the silent account. Killer fear shows up in many disguises. Sometimes it's the fear of losing money, which makes you exit too early. Sometimes it's the fear of missing out, which pushes you into trades that don't meet your criteria. Sometimes it's the fear of being wrong, which keeps you holding a losing position far longer than you should. I once mentored a trader named Mark. Mark had solid strategies, but he constantly cut trades too early. If his target was 50 pips, he'd close at 10 or 15 because he was scared the market might reverse. Ironically, he was right most of the time. The market often went exactly where he predicted, but his fear robbed him of profits. Over time, this fear cost him far more than any single losing trade. Fear thrives on uncertainty, and markets are always uncertain. That means the only way to conquer fear is to learn to accept uncertainty, not run from it. Greed, the trap of just a little more. If fear makes you exit too early, greed makes you stay too long. Greed is that little voice saying, "Don't close yet. You can make more." And 9 times out of 10, the market takes it back. Greed isn't just about money. It's about ego. It's the desire to be right, to prove you're smarter than the market, to squeeze every last drop out of a move. But the market doesn't reward ego. It punishes it. I remember one of my earliest trades where I was up 30%. I knew my target was hit, but I thought, what if I can get 50%? Minutes later, the trade reversed, and I ended up with nothing. That pain burned into my memory. It taught me that discipline to take profits is harder than making profits. In the first place, greed will always whisper for more. The only cure is having a plan and sticking to it. FOMO. The siren song of the market, fear of missing out, might be the most dangerous emotion of all. You see a chart shooting up, and you think, "I can't miss this." So you jump in late, only to get trapped at the top. Or you see others posting profits online, and you feel pressure to trade, even though no setup matches your rules. FOMO is powerful because it's rooted in social comparison. Humans are wired to measure themselves against others. In trading, this instinct can be deadly. Social media is filled with highlight reels of traders posting wins, but you rarely see the losses behind the scenes. Comparing your journey to others' snapshots leads to impatience, frustration, and reckless trades. The truth is, missing trades is part of trading. No one catches every move. No one wins every day. Accepting that you'll miss opportunities is one of the hardest but most liberating skills you can develop. The power of neutral thinking. So how do you fight these emotions? One of the most powerful techniques is something I call neutral thinking. Neutral thinking means you stop labeling trades as good or bad, win or loss. Instead, you treat every trade as data. A win isn't a victory. It's just information that your process worked this time. A loss isn't a failure. It's information that the probabilities didn't line up. Neutral thinking takes the emotionals, charge out of trading. Instead of feeling euphoric when you win or devastated when you lose, you stay steady. You focus on the process, not the outcome. Over time, this steadiness compounds into confidence. Practical tools for emotional control. Knowing about emotions isn't enough. You need practical tools to manage them. One of the simplest is deep breathing. When you feel panic rising, pause and take slow, deep breaths. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the body's calm down switch, and gives your brain space to think rationally. Another tool is journaling. After every trade, write down what you felt. Did fear make you exit early? Did greed make you stay too long? Did FOMO push you into a bad setup? Over weeks and months, you'll start seeing patterns in your emotional behavior. Awareness is the first step to control. Visualization is also powerful. Before entering a trade, visualize both outcomes, the trade winning and the trade losing. Imagine how you'll feel in both cases. This mental rehearsal prepares your brain for reality and reduces the shock of emotions when the trade actually plays out. And finally, create rules that protect you from yourself. For example, if I feel emotional, I won't place a trade. Or, if I hit my daily loss limit, I stop for the day. These rules act like guardrails when your emotions try to drive you off course. Training the trader's mind. Emotional control isn't built in a day. It's built over hundreds of trades, thousands of hours, and repeated exposure to stress. Every time you resist fear, every time you silence greed, every time you ignore FOMO, you strengthen your emotional muscle. Think of it like going to the gym. The first time you lift weights, it feels impossible. But over time, your muscles adapt and grow. Emotional control works the same way. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. That's why experienced traders often seem calm under pressure. It's not that they don't feel emotions, they do. But they've trained themselves to act despite them. They've built resilience through repetition. When to step away. One of the most underrated aspects of emotional control is knowing when to stop. There will be days when emotions run too high. Maybe you just took a big loss. Maybe you're frustrated from a losing streak. Maybe your personal life is bleeding into your trading mindset. On those days, the most disciplined thing you can do is step away. Close the laptop, go for a walk, reset your mind. The market will always be there tomorrow. Protecting your mental capital is just as important as protecting your financial capital. Final thoughts on emotional control mastering. Emotional control is the foundation of long-term trading success. Strategies may change. Markets may evolve. But the ability to stay calm under pressure, to follow your plan, despite fear, greed, and FOMO, that skill will never lose value. The greatest traders in the world aren't those who never feel emotions. They're the ones who feel them, acknowledge them, and still act with discipline. Your goal is not to eliminate emotions. That's impossible. Your goal is to master them, so they no longer master you. Trading is less about predicting markets and more about managing yourself. If you can conquer your emotions, you can conquer the market. And if you can't, no strategy in the world will save you. Because at the end of the day, the true battleground isn't on the charts. It's in your. Chapter 4. Risk like the rich. When most people hear the word rich, they imagine fancy cars, big houses, and a luxurious lifestyle. But when I hear rich in the trading world, I think of something else entirely. Control over risk. Rich. Traders don't gamble. They don't throw money around carelessly. They don't bet the farm on one trade. They manage risk with an almost obsessive level of discipline. That's the real difference between the traders who survive long enough to build wealth and the ones who blow up accounts over and over again. It might sound boring. Risk management isn't as exciting as predicting the next big move or bragging about massive wins. But here's the truth. Every millionaire trader I know treats risk management like oxygen. You don't think about it until it's gone. And then it's too late. Risk is the silent foundation of success. If you learn to risk like the rich, you give yourself the one thing most traders never have: longevity. And longevity is the secret to compounding small wins into massive wealth. The illusion of go big or go home. New traders often come in with the go big or go home mentality. They see trading as a shortcut to riches. They think if they just take one or two big bets, they'll hit the jackpot. Sometimes they even get lucky. But luck has a cruel way of disappearing just when you think you've figured it out. I've watched traders turn $500 into $5,000 in a week, only to lose it all the next week. Why? Because their entire strategy was gambling disguised as trading. They weren't risking like the rich. They were risking like the desperate. And desperation never lasts long in the markets. Real wealth isn't built on one lucky trade. It's built on protecting yourself from disaster. The rich don't think about how much they can make. They think about how much they can afford to lose. Why survival comes before profits. Here's something you may not want to hear. Your number one job as a trader is not to make money. It's to stay in the game. If you blow up your account, the game is over. You can't trade tomorrow. You can't let compounding do its magic. You can't build experience. That's why survival is priority number one. This is the exact mindset rich traders adopt. They think about risk first, profit second. They know that if they protect their capital, the profits will come. But if they lose their capital, the game ends, no matter how brilliant they are. Think of a professional poker player. They don't go all in every hand. They protect their chips. They wait for high-probability situations. They manage risk so that even if they lose a hand, they can still keep playing. Trading works the same way. The 1% rule. The rich trader's secret, one of the simplest but most powerful principles in trading, is the 1% rule. It means you never risk more than 1% of your account on a single trade. If you have $1,000, the maximums you're willing to lose on one trade is $10. Now, $10 doesn't sound like much, and that's the point. By keeping risks small, you make sure no single trade has the power to destroy you. Even if you lose 10 trades in a row, your account isn't wiped out. You're still alive to trade another day. This is how rich traders think. They don't care about the outcome of one trade. They care about the outcome of hundreds, even thousands of trades. They know that over time, probabilities work in their favor, but probabilities only work if you give them time, and that means keeping risks small enough to survive the losing streaks. The math of survival. Let's look at some numbers. Suppose you risk 10% of your account on each trade. That means 10 losing trades in a row will wipe you out completely. And believe me, 10 losses in a row can happen to anyone, no matter how good their strategy is. Now suppose you risk 1% per trade. To blow up your account, you'd need 100 consecutive losses. That's practically impossible if you're following a solid system. The difference is massive. By lowering risk, you increase your survival odds exponentially. And survival is everything. Because the longer you survive, the more you can benefit from the magic of compounding. Compounding. The quiet millionaire maker compounding is boring. It's slow. It doesn't give you exciting stories to brag about, but it's how real wealth is built. Here's the magic. If you can make just 2% per week consistently, your account will double in less than a year. Keep compounding at that rate. And in a few years, you can go from a tiny account to something life-changing. The catch? You only get to compound if you don't blow up. That's why rich traders are obsessed with risk. They'd rather make steady, boring returns for years than risk it all for one big win. They understand that slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. The psychology of risk isn't just about numbers. It's about psychology. When you risk too much, you put your emotions into overdrive. Suddenly, every tick of the market feels like life or death. You start making irrational decisions. You move stops. You add to losing positions. You panic. But when you risk small, something amazing happens. You relax. You stop obsessing over every move. You start thinking clearly. You can actually follow your strategy without fear clouding your judgment. That's why rich traders risk small, not just to protect their accounts, but to protect their minds. How the rich think about losses. Here's another difference between rich traders and everyone else. They don't see losses as failures. They see them as the cost of doing business. Imagine you own a coffee shop. Every day, you spend money on beans, milk, cups, and rent. Are those losses? Of course not. They're expenses that allow you to stay in business. Rich traders treat losses the same way. A loss isn't a failure. It's an expense. As long as the losses are controlled and within plan, they're simply part of running the trading business. This mindset frees them from the emotional spiral that ruins most traders. Building a risk framework. So how do you actually risk like the rich? First, you decide your maximum risk per trade, usually 1%. Then you size your position accordingly. That means if your stop loss is 50 pips away, you calculate how many units you can trade so that if it hits the stop, you only lose 1% of your account. Second, you set daily or weekly loss limits. For example, you might decide never to lose more than 3% in a day. If you hit that limit, you stop trading and come back tomorrow. Rich traders don't chase. They protect themselves from spirals. Finally, you diversify your risk. Don't put all your capital in one trade, one asset, or one idea. Spread it out. That way, even if one position goes wrong, it doesn't take your whole account down with it. Stories of rich risk management. I'll never forget reading about Paul Tudor Jones, one of the most successful hedge fund managers of all time. He once said, "Don't focus on making money. Focus on protecting what you have." That's the essence of risk, like the rich. Another legendary trader, Warren Buffett, is famous for his two rules. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Of course, Buffett has lost money on individual trades and investments. What he means is never risk so much that a loss threatens your survival. These great traders didn't succeed because they predicted markets perfectly. They succeeded because they managed risk so well that even when they were wrong, they lived to fight another day. Why most traders refuse to risk? Small, if risk management is so powerful, why don't most traders use it? The answer is impatience. Small risk feels slow. Risking 1% per trade feels like it'll take forever to grow an account. So traders get greedy. They want big wins fast. But here's the irony. By risking big, they end up losing faster. By trying to speed up, they crash. Meanwhile, the disciplined trader who risks small grows steadily, quietly, and eventually leaves everyone else behind. It's the tortoise and the hare, played out in the financial markets, and the tortoise always wins. Final thoughts on risk like the rich at the end of the day. Trading is not about how much you can make. It's about how much you can afford to lose and still keep playing. Rich traders understand this. They manage risk with respect. They protect their capital like it's their life. Because in trading, it is. If you learn nothing else from this chapter, remember this. One big loss can ruin you, but 1,000 small controlled losses won't. Risk small, stay disciplined, and let compounding do the heavy lifting. Risk like the rich, and eventually you'll live like the rich. Chapter 5. The long game to $1. Everyone loves the idea of turning a small account into $1 million. The phrase itself feels magical, like a movie storyline where the underdog beats the odds. But here's the truth. Very few traders are willing to accept getting to $1 million isn't about a single winning trade, a secret indicator, or a lucky streak. It's about patience, consistency, and discipline stretched over years. It's about playing the long game. The long game isn't sexy. It doesn't give you overnight riches or instant gratification. But it's the only path that actually works. If you want to transform $100 into $1, you must first transform yourself into someone who can stick to boring, consistent habits for as long as it takes. The market rewards patience. It punishes impatience. And the difference between the traders who make it and those who don't usually comes down to who's willing to wait. Why consistency beats brilliance. Many new traders think success comes from brilliance. They imagine millionaire traders as geniuses who can predict every move of the market. But in reality, the best traders aren't fortune tellers. They're consistent grinders. They know they don't need to be right all the time. They just need to stick to a repeatable process long enough for probabilities and compounding to work their magic. Think of a casino. Casinos don't win every hand. In fact, sometimes gamblers walk away with big wins. But casinos don't care because they know over thousands of hands. Their small edge always wins. They're consistent, patient, and systematic. That's exactly how you must approach trading. You're not in it for one win. You're in it for thousands of trades executed with discipline. The trap of get-rich-quick thinking. The hardest part of playing the long game is resisting the temptation of shortcuts. Everywhere you look, someone is promising quick riches. Turn $500 into $50,000 in a month. Quit your job in 30 days with my secret strategy. These messages flood social media because they sell dreams. But they don't sell reality. The reality is this: fast money always leads to fast losses. The traders who chase big wins end up blowing accounts, starting over, and repeating the cycle until they burn out completely. The ones who grow slowly, who respect the process, who treat trading as a business, they're the ones who build wealth that lasts. Patience isn't just a virtue in trading. It's the difference between survival and destruction. Compounding, the eighth wonder of the world. Albert Einstein supposedly called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. Whether or not he actually said it, the principle stands. Compounding is the engine that turns small, consistent wins into massive wealth over time. Let's break it down. Suppose you start with $100 and make just 2% a week. That doesn't sound like much, right? But in a year, that $100 grows to about $280. In 5 years, it grows to more than $12,000. And if you keep going, the numbers get absurd. That's the power of compounding. Not big flashy wins, but steady growth that multiplies quietly in the background. Now imagine starting with $1,000. At 2% per week, in 5 years, you're over $120,000. Add another 5 years, and you're well past $1 million. Compounding requires two things: time and consistency. The time part means you must stay in the game long enough. The consistency part means you can't risk everything on one trade and blow up. The long game is about protecting both. Treating trading like a business. Most traders fail because they treat trading like a hobby or a lottery. They show up randomly. They don't keep records, and they act on emotion instead of a system. No real business could survive that way. Imagine running a restaurant where you never tracked expenses, served food whenever you felt like it, and changed the menu every day. You'd be bankrupt in weeks. Trading is no different. If you want to make $1 million, you have to treat trading like a serious business. That means having a plan. That means tracking your results. That means knowing your numbers, your win rate, your risk-to-reward ratio, your average loss, your average gain. Businesses succeed because they focus on repeatable systems, not one-off wins. As a trader, your system is your edge. Once you find it, your job is to execute it consistently, just like a business delivers the same quality to its customers day after day. Building a repeatable system. So, what does a repeatable system look like? It's not complicated. It's a set of rules that tell you when to enter, when to exit, and how much to risk. The exact details can vary, but the important thing is that it's consistent. The beauty of a system is that it removes emotion. You don't have to guess. You don't have to gamble. You simply follow the rules. Over time, this builds confidence. You stop thinking in terms of one trade and start thinking in terms of hundreds. A repeatable system doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, no system is. Even a strategy that wins 50% of the time can be profitable if your winners are bigger than your losers. The key is to stick to it long enough for the probabilities to work out. Patience. The trader's superpower, patience, is the hardest skill to master in trading because it goes against human nature. We live in a world of instant gratification. Click a button, and your food arrives. Stream a movie instantly. Post online, and likes roll in within seconds. But trading doesn't work that way. In trading, the best opportunities often come slowly. You might wait hours, days, even weeks for the perfect setup. And when it comes, you need the patience to let it play out. Most traders fail, not because they don't know what to do, but because they can't wait long enough to do it. Patience also applies to growth. You won't turn $100 into $1 in a month, but you can do it in years if you stick to the plan. The long game requires you to zoom out. Stop looking at what happened this week. Start looking at what can happen over the next 5 years if you're consistent. Consistency. The bridge to 1M consistency is what ties it all together. Without consistency, compounding breaks. Without consistency, your system falls apart. Consistency means you show up every day with the same level of discipline, regardless of how you feel. It means you don't skip journaling because you're tired, or change your risk rules because you're impatient. Think of a professional athlete. They don't train only when they feel like it. They train every day, rain or shine. That's why they're professionals. Trading is no different. The market rewards those who treat it with consistency. Stories of the long game. I once knew a trader named Alex who started with just $500. At first, he was frustrated. He wanted quick wins. But after blowing 2 accounts, he finally embraced the long game. He built a system, risked small, and focused on consistency. For the first year, he barely doubled his account. But by year 3, his compounding had taken off. By year 5, he was managing a 6-figure account. On the flip side, there was Jake. Jake came in with $2,000 and wanted to get rich quick. He risked big, won a few trades, and thought he was unstoppable. Within 3 months, his account was gone. Jake quit trading, bitter and broke. Alex kept going, steady and patient. Today, Alex is still trading. Jake is still complaining. The lesson is clear. The long game rewards those who play it. Why most traders quit too early? Most traders never reach $1. Not because it's impossible, but because they quit too early. They get bored. They get frustrated. They think progress is too slow. They chase shiny new strategies instead of sticking to one system. The irony is that if they just stayed the course, their patience would eventually be rewarded. Compounding starts slow, but once it snowballs, it accelerates. The hardest part is sticking around long enough to see it happen. Think of bamboo. For years, bamboo grows only underground, building roots. Nothing seems to happen above the surface. Then suddenly, in a matter of weeks, it shoots up dozens of feet. Trading is the same way. You might not see results for a while. But if you keep building your foundation, growth will explode when the time is right. Final thoughts on the long game. The journey from $100 to $1 isn't about luck, genius, or secret strategies. It's about patience, consistency, and discipline over time. It's about treating trading like a business, respecting risk, and compounding small wins until they snowball into something massive. The long game is hard. It's boring. It demands more self-control than most people can handle. But that's exactly why so few succeed, and why those who do are rewarded so handsomely. If you remember nothing else from this book, remember this. The market doesn't care about how much you want to be rich. It cares about how disciplined you are willing to be, how patient you are willing to remain, and how consistent you are willing to act. Play the long game, and one day you'll look back at your journey and realize the $1 million was never the goal. The real prize was the person you became along the way, the trader who mastered patience, discipline, and resilience. That's the trader who can not only make $1 million, but keep it.